All right. As of about 20 minutes ago, Geno Smith was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, this is pretty big news because this is the start of the quarterback dominoes within the 2025 offseason. Obviously, we know it's going to be an extremely busy next really week or so, probably 2 weeks. And there's a lot of teams that are going to be in the veteran market for a quarterback, whether it's the Raiders, who of course were in the market, the Seahawks are now in the market, of course, the Titans, the Steelers, the Jets, the Giants. There's a lot of teams that are in the market. Now, my biggest thing whenever I look at this trade is the Raiders last year finished 29th in points per game offensively. And as a team, they were not very good throwing the football. They threw for 3,700 yards, well, nearly 3,800. They threw for 19 touchdowns. They threw 16 interceptions as a team. And by bringing in Geno Smith, I don't think it's definitely not a hot take, but it's not an exaggeration to say this is the best quarterback the Raiders have had since Derek Carr. So this was a big upgrade for the Raiders. And in 2023, they were led by a mix of Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G. And the biggest thing with the Raiders entering the 2025 season, and really the draft for that matter, is I did not want them to be sitting ducks at number 6 overall and to basically have to trade a 25-1, a 26-1, maybe even more, because who knows what it would have cost to go up to number 1 if Cam Ward was even their guy, and we don't know if Cam Ward was their guy, but it doesn't matter now because this trade bought the Raiders at least a year of where they can breathe easy, and a year of just if you will. And that's the biggest thing why I like this trade. So the Raiders, for anyone who does not know, obviously, I'm very active on Twitter and everything. I have Rappaport's notifications on, Schefter's, all of them, right? He was traded for a 3rd round pick. And I don't think it's been announced yet, but it's projected that it was the 3rd round pick that they used with the Jets, which they used to get Davante Adams. So that is pretty big news. That's obviously pretty big in itself because, Davante Adams is going to be gone anyway. You fleeced the Jets in the process, who had to release Davante Adams, and now you get Geno Smith with that pick. And obviously, like we said, the biggest thing here with this selection is it's an upgrade and it's a floor raiser at the position for the Raiders. And now when you look at what the Raiders are going to do in 2025 with Pete Carroll as their head coach, that was the biggest thing for me, was raising the floor from a 4-win team, number 6 overall pick, to, let's just call it what it is, guys. I don't think they could have the most perfect offseason imaginable, and that they would go from 4 wins to 12 wins, win that division next year, beat the Chiefs, beat the Bills, beat the Ravens in the playoffs, go to the Super Bowl. This is not a 1-year turnaround. But, if you could trade a 3rd round pick from a player that didn't want to play for your team anyway into reuniting with his former head coach, who, by the way, Geno had the best year of his career a couple of years ago under Pete Carroll. Not that Pete Carroll was some offensive guru, X's and O's guy that was telling Geno to hit the sail route at the... he's telling him to hit the sail route with the corner's hips at a certain angle because they saw it on tape 3 weeks prior. Not that he was some exaggerative X's and O's guys where he was finding this stuff, but it's a really good reunion, if you will. And I don't expect the Raiders to win 12 games now, but the biggest thing here is it's a floor raiser, and it's also the first domino in terms of the NFL offseason. So what I want to discuss now is I want to break down the other quarterbacks, because at this point, I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to the Giants. That makes a lot of sense for both sides. Aaron Rodgers is, he already lived in the area this past year. The Giants coaching, both Dable and Shane are, by every definition, on the hot seat. So when you look at the Giants now, and ultimately the rest of the quarterback dominoes, I think it's a 2-team race for Aaron Rodgers. I guess 3 between the Steelers and Titans as well. But I do think the Giants are going to bring in Rodgers. And then you have a lot of other quarterback dominoes. And the big one here is Sam Darnold. And we're at the point with the Seahawks, and somebody commented this earlier. I wanted to specifically shout this person out. I wanted to, somebody said W for both sides. So if I can find that comment, and for anybody who is listening to this after the fact or the podcast, this is a live stream on YouTube, chat or see that Smooth said, I think it was a W for both sides. I would agree with that, because the Seahawks as much as I liked the Geno Smith redemption story, what I think needs to be remembered is, or at least acknowledged now, is we've had a couple of years of Geno with the Seahawks, and I like Geno Smith. I think there's definitely times on tape. There was one play in particular he had against the Saints a couple years ago. I think it was a big play to Tyler Lockett, who was recently released. It was just an absolutely ridiculous throw. Seahawks fans know the play I'm talking about. It was like quarters coverage. Geno just throws it in a spot where only Tyler Lockett can beat his guy, and at least I think it was quarters coverage. But the point is Geno had a bit of a down year in 2023 and 2020, or a bit of a down 2 years relative to the guy that he was 2 years ago. And the Seahawks, in a lot of ways, I've had people request to do Seahawks content for a couple weeks, but they were entering this position where they were in dangerous territory of becoming the NFC Pittsburgh Steelers, where they have a really good defense. They have a really good head coach. I like Mike McDonald a lot. I've been vocal about that in the past countless times, but now that we have Geno, he's going to throw for anywhere from 20 to 25 touchdowns a year. They're going to win 8, 9, 10 games. Do we really trust the Seahawks to go into Detroit and win? Do we really trust them to go into Philly and win in the postseason? No. So, credit see that's smooth. I think it's a W for both sides. I completely agree with that. Super chat from Luke. Appreciate it. He says, what do you think the plan for Seattle is? Guys, it makes a lot of sense for Sam Darnold to go there. It makes a lot of sense. I want to break down. I'm going to actually see if I can pull up. I'm going to see if I can pull up just their cap space. I'm not exactly the best with the. Admittedly, I'm not the best with the technological aspect here on OBS. So I'm going to see if I can pull up their cap space. Now they just, and I don't know if this is exactly updated on over the cap and everything, but the Seahawks obviously just released a couple of players, most notably Tyler Lockett being one of them, to free up a lot of cap space. And obviously this is not going to be updated within 20 minutes. So the Geno was traded about 25 minutes ago at this point. But so obviously it's not going to be updated yet. So right now Geno has a cap hit of $44.5 million. The cap savings, if they were to cut Geno pre-June 1st, was $31 million. So how I think that works, and there's smarter people with the cap than myself. But how I think that works is, at minimum, they're going to free up $31 million within the cap to have them at $63 million. I could be wrong in that, but that's at minimum that's how I think it works. So I think at minimum they'll have $63 million in cap, I think is how that works. So, to go back to the super chat here from Luke, the plan for Seattle, guys, I really think at this point is to go after Sam Darnold, because you are still in a window where you can convince yourself that Sam Darnold's the guy. I mean, guys, we're at a point with Seattle, right, where they are picking 18th. And we can reasonably have this conversation. They're not going to do anything drastic and trade, whatever it would take to go to pick 1. We'll just hypothetically say Devin Witherspoon and DK Metcalf and pick 18 to go to pick 1. Whatever it would take. I don't know if it would take that. I'm just spitballing. The point is it's drastic, and they're not going to do that, right? So you're in a situation in Seattle where you just went 10-7, first-year head coach. I think they improved throughout the year. Now, they had some definite tough turns at the end. That Green Bay game on Sunday night towards the end of the year was pretty tough. The way that Vikings game ended was pretty tough, with, ironically, Sam Darnold throwing a deep ball to Justin Jefferson for a big touchdown late in the game. But this was a team that was 8-5 at a point. And, again, they're not a bad football team. So if you can bring in Sam Darnold, who, by the way, to the Seahawks' benefit, tanked his free agent value, not purposefully, of course, but tanked his free agent value in the final 2 games of the year. I don't think it's unreasonable for Sam to sign a 2-year, $55 million contract and see if it works out in Seattle. And if it doesn't, it's not. I mean, the cap is not going to be the biggest problem in the world, especially if you sign a quarterback for what you were going to pay Geno anyway, technically less than what you would pay Geno. So right now, I think that's the plan. All right. Jackson Dart to pick 18 for that 5th-year option. I don't think that would be the option at this point. I think they would go after a veteran, because Jackson Dart right now, Jackson Dart does not raise the floor of the team. Jackson Dart does not take them from, at least as a rookie, Jackson Dart does not have the Seahawks go from 10 wins to 12 in year 1. That doesn't happen. JTWK Seahawks fan, I'll just give you my money because I'm sad. I appreciate the super chat. I really do. But the Seahawks are now in a weird position because DK Metcalf also just requested a trade. But I don't think they're just going to go from 10 wins to just say, you know what, let's just go complete rebuild. I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that's how that would work. Now I'm going to try one thing quickly here. I'm going to see if we can do a quick mock draft and just see how this would work for the Seahawks end. I'm going to see if I can do this. Again, I am not the smartest with technology, so just bear with me here. And I don't think it's actually going to work, but there we go. We're actually up. Okay, so we're right there. And I'm going to blank that for a second. And then I'm going to go to PFF for the mock draft simulator and then actually discuss what the Seahawks mock draft would actually look like at this point. Because again, I don't think they're going to go into the quarterback, or I don't think they're going to go into the draft without a quarterback. So the Seahawks are going to absolutely, at least my take, they're going to absolutely sign somebody within the next week. Now, I don't think they're going to be drastic and sign Aaron Rodgers. I would be very surprised if they did that. Although, thinking out loud, you could justify it by saying it's 1 year, and if it doesn't work, we draft a quarterback next year, and if it does, we win a playoff game, we look good, and we give the fan base hope. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. But we're going to keep going here. All right, let's see here. Geno, DK, Lockett are all reuniting with Pete. Okay. Too evil to hope. Appreciate the super chat. Would Aaron Rodgers sign with the Vikings be good? No. We're giving we're giving the double thumbs down with that. It's JJ McCarthy season. No. No. But we are also going to talk about what the Seahawks would actually look like now. So I'm going to try and do an actual mock draft here with the Seahawks and just see what this would look like. So we're up here, and I'm back right there. I'm back. So when you look at this Seahawks mock draft, obviously they have pick 18. I'm just going to go ahead and sim. I sim a lot of the, just sim right before here. This is generally, you can make an argument, sure, that Donovan Ezraku is not going to be picked at pick 15. But the Seahawks still need offensive line, no doubt. That doesn't change. Armand Membu is a dream for the Seahawks, but he's going to pick 4 in this mock draft here. Will Campbell going to pick 8. The Seahawks still need offensive line no matter what. So when you look at who is available for them, going to be honest, the board didn't break all that well. Let's see if there's any guys that would move in. I like Kelvin Banks a lot. I wouldn't mind him moving in. Gray Zabel, you could argue, is a little rich. But I don't think right now that this mock draft would actually change all that much for Seattle. See if we can trade back. We can trade back a couple picks for the Chargers, pick up a third, and just go ahead and get that. And let's go ahead and draft Gray Zabel here to draft an interior offensive line at pick 22. Or to draft an offensive lineman, rather. He could play anywhere along the offensive line, which is a big help, which the Seahawks absolutely need. They could certainly use another pass rusher, but I don't think Braden Swinson is probably the player I would go here. But let's take a look at the quarterbacks. I know PFF was pretty low on Jackson Dart. He won't be here at pick 50, but so I'm not going to draft him. But I would probably go Braden Swinson here. Maybe Carson Schwessinger, like them both. But again, I don't think the Seahawks mock draft would change all that much from where we are. But let's take a look at the comments here. Let's see here. Oh, wait. There we go. Shoo, that was almost, disregard that. All right, there we go. Russ is coming home. I don't think Russ is going back to the Seahawks. Jets drafting Genty would be so dumb. I don't think he's going to go there either. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Stroud changed their teams overnight. I don't think drafting a quarterback they like and starting him is out of the question. I would just be surprised if the Seahawks chose to draft a quarterback, or at least enter the draft with no quarterback, and basically say, you know what, guys, whatever happens, if someone falls to pick 4, pick 5, that's exactly what we're gonna do. So I don't think that. Now, Geno to the Raiders, like I said, he raises the floor. That is the biggest thing. Now, I do want to discuss a couple of other, we talk about free agents here. So I want to look up just to confirm every NFL free agent here. I do like to pull that up just to make sure I'm not forgetting any names. Obviously, Rodgers, Darnold, those are going to be the cream of the crop there. But let's take a look here. I mean, even Russell Wilson for that matter. But if I had to guess right now, just with all the new information, Geno, Raiders, obviously, which surprises me, but good for the Raiders, by the way. I have not said this over the past couple of years as much as I've wanted to say for the Raiders, but this was all around a tremendous process for them. They get a solid quarterback. They upgrade the position, best quarterback they've had in plural years. They traded a pick to the Jets, or to the Seahawks. That was an original pick they traded from the Jets. They still have 3 top 100 selections. They have, to go back to the Raiders mock draft here, the Raiders have 4 selections in the top 107. If you're a Raiders fan, I feel like you genuinely have to be thrilled with this. I mean, you have to be thrilled with this. And the Raiders, by the way, are coming off of a year in which they had 2 1,000-yard receivers in Brock Bowers, of course, and Jacoby Myers. So, to go back to the free agents and to actually, play all of this out, guys, it makes a lot of sense for Sam Darnold to be a Seahawk. It makes a lot of sense because you're entering year 2 with Mike McDonald, and if it doesn't work out, then you can go into the 2026 draft with, hey, we might trade up, because I don't think the Seahawks are going to be bad, and that's kind of a position where they do remind me of the Steelers a little bit in the fact that they're not going to be bad, but they're also, they're never going to be like top 3 or 4 pick unless everybody gets hurt, which we of course don't wish for. But they're such a high floor team. So if you bring in Sam Darnold, who is a pretty solid free agent quarterback, all things considered, Sam Darnold just threw for over 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. I know everybody is going to have the short-term memory with the Lions Week 18 game and the Rams wildcard game, and I get it. The Rams wildcard game was probably one of the most frustrating, as a Vikings fan, one of the most frustrating games that I've watched in a long time, in a very long time. I would put it up there with 2018 Bills Week 3. There's probably a couple I'm forgetting. One of the Eagles games on Monday night over the past couple of years was definitely frustrating. But it was just all around, screaming at the TV, Sam, what are you doing? Which obviously brings his free agent value down quite a bit. But even if Sam doesn't work out, he'll be 28 this year, and he would still get a chance next year. Good for Sam. He can move on and can try and continue to work out somewhere else. But if he does, he has another 30 touchdown year, he doesn't pee his pants on the biggest stage, then we're having a different conversation, because now we're at a conversation of the Seahawks just got their franchise quarterback at 28 years old. They can have him for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Maybe, I don't want to say 10 because that is an eternity, but you can have this 28-year-old quarterback until he's 32 years old, and you bring him in on a discount because of how bad he played in the final 2 games. And now you have a young receiver in Jackson Smith-Njigba to play out his rookie contract and to play out his career. And you can still address the offensive line, whether it's Jared Wilson from Georgia, whether it's, like we said, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. The Seahawks make a lot of sense to go after Sam Darnold. All right. Let's see here. What did the Jags do for free agency? Crazy week. I think they're gonna do whatever they can to go bring in Trevor, another weapon. I would be surprised if Chris Godwin leaves Jacksonville at this point, or Tampa rather, but Jacksonville going after Chris Godwin would make a lot of sense for both sides. So we'll see. If I am the Jags, if I am the Patriots, I am not getting outbid by the Buccaneers to go get Chris Godwin. I am doing everything I can to bring in Chris Godwin, especially the Patriots. They have so much money, and the Jags have increased their money a lot over the past couple days. They can absolutely go get, and should get for that matter, not just can, but they should go get Trevor, a big receiver. But yeah, the Jags going after Chris Godwin to me makes a lot of sense. All right. It's amazing how much I completely agree, Charlotte. It is amazing how much the 2 bad games will end up costing Darnold. It's also a perfect sign of just recency bias. Not that there's, it's the 2 biggest games of the year, so it obviously matters the most. But Sam was on a tear at points in the year, and he looked like, I'm not going to get into rankings, but he looked like a legit franchise quarterback. Like, hey, I know for a fact as a Vikings fan that I said to myself multiple times throughout the 2024 season, JJ can take as long as he wants. We can run it back another year with Darnold because the level that he played at times was high. He played tremendous in the Packers game in week 17, a week before that he needed to have a good game. Made one bad read on an interception, but other than that, he threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Vikings swept the Packers. But it's probably going to cost him 10, 15 mil a year. All right. It was also his first playoff game. I mean, I get it, but it's unfortunate that that happened. All right, let's see here. Hey, Seahawks, Eagles fans here. We have Kenny Pickett you can trade for. Probably take a 5th for him. I don't think Kenny's the guy. I do not think Kenny Pickett is the guy. Although, speaking of Kenny, 2022 draft class grades out tomorrow, 10 a.m. Set your calendar, be there, and don't miss it. So, yeah. All right. Darnold was also not good against the Colts and Jags. He was not all that. I mean, you're technically correct, but let me ask you this. I mean, how many teams can do me a favor here? Ask Browns fans, hey, would you, even if you have a couple of bad games a year, would you take a quarterback that throws for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns and wins 14 games? I mean, yeah, I mean, let's nitpick everybody here. Why don't we just, hey, Lamar Jackson didn't play good against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. They lost. They only put up 16 points on the road or whatever it was. I think it was 18-16 off the top of my head, but Lamar didn't play good. It's yes, I mean, everybody has bad games, but overwhelmingly, I mean, you win 14 games, you throw for 35 touchdowns, you are doing your job. And there's a lot of teams that would take that. But, I mean, there was the stretch from weeks 11 through 17, and I'm pulling the numbers up from Pro Football Reference now here. I'm just waiting for the screen to load here. But Darnold, in those 7 games, threw 18 touchdowns to 2 picks and threw for 2,000 yards. 17-game pace, he's would have thrown for 44 touchdowns to 5 interceptions for nearly 5,000 yards. I mean, he was playing elite football during that stretch. Again, outside of a couple throws here and there, but it was a fun time. All right, Justin, appreciate the membership, appreciate it, and we'll have a member stream coming up, but. Sign of how teams view this free agent quarterback class. So that's a good question, Justin. I credit the Raiders, again, because I have not said this a lot over the past 2 years, and I want the Raiders to be good. I want Max Crosby to have the opportunity to get after Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Bo Nix, for that matter, in meaningful games. I don't want it to be when the Raiders are 4-9 and they were eliminated 2 weeks ago. I want Max Crosby to have a chance to eventually be called a Super Bowl champion. He deserves it. I love Max Crosby. And I do think it is a sign, all of this to say, by the way, that I think it is a sign of how teams view the free agent quarterback class. And ultimately, that also plays into the draft class, the quarterback class as well, because there's not going to be 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12. There's not. I think there might be 3 in the first round, but Jackson Dart's a little bit of a, have to project at this point. But it's definitely a sign. And credit the Raiders for going out and making it happen. FT, appreciate the super chat. Do the Seahawks go in the next year with Howe, or do they draft a quarterback? I can see Dart and Milroe getting to them, but I don't know. I'd be shocked if Milroe's the top 17 selection. First off, I'd be shocked. But I don't think they're going to go into the year with Sam Howell. I don't. Like I said, I think Sam Darnold makes a lot of sense because he'll be 28. He had a bad couple of final games, but for the most part, played at a pretty high level throughout most of 2024. Now, I will say the game that was brought up earlier, the Jags game from Darnold specifically was awful. I mean, it was, I would say the Jags game from Darnold personally, I would say that was worse than the Lions or the Rams, just how he played. Obviously, when you factor in number 1 seed in week 18 and then ultimately a playoff game, obviously they're going to trump the Jags game in week 9 or whatever it was. But in terms of how he actually played, taking the circumstances out, the Jags game was awful. But, you're going to have a pumpkin here or there from, I guess, a larger pumpkin from Sam Darnold. But I really think they're going to go after him. He's still a young player. I mean, he's been in the league for forever, it seems like, but he's still 28. So it makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks to go after him. And if the Seahawks don't go after Darnold, here's why that I'm on this so much, right? Because this could be the ultimate golden question. Well, why haven't you brought Sam Darnold up for anybody else? The Titans are the only other team to me that I think makes legitimate sense for Darnold because they have cap space. They have a quarterback, or a coach rather, whose seat is not hot, but it's definitely not cold in Brian Callahan. They just had the number 1 pick. They just won 3 games. They underperformed in a lot of areas. So how much would you trust Brian Callahan to develop a quarterback? I think that's a reasonable question. And could Cam Ward in his rookie year outplay Sam Darnold when it pertains to the sake of Brian Callahan's job? So that goes back to why I think the Seahawks are going to be in on Darnold. I just think it makes so much sense for both sides. Not that Los Angeles or Orange County and Seattle are close, because they're not, although I guess you can bring this up for anybody who's into he's near where he grew up, and even though they're not close, but it's West Coast, I don't know how much that would play into Sam's decision. Just wanted to at least acknowledge that. All right, Brett, what do you think the Broncos plan for free agency and the draft? Tight end, big one. Bring in, overall, just improve the pass catchers for Bo Nix. That's the biggest thing for the Broncos this year. And improve the safety play a little bit that they can. Defense is obviously, especially, you have the best corner in the league right now. Nick Bonito. Love Nick Bonito coming out of Oklahoma a couple years ago. You're pretty solid defensively, but it's going to be pass catchers majority for the Broncos. All right, Joseph, appreciate the super chat. Giants fan here. Travis Hunter's low weight worries me in a division of big-bodied receivers like AJ, CD, and Terry if they draft him. Thoughts? That is very, very fair, because not that he's the same weight as this player I'm about to bring up, but obviously everybody gets picks wrong, and I've had my fair share, and I'll share them in a minute. But relative to this, I didn't like the Emmanuel Forbes selection for the Commanders for this exact reason. You're bringing Emmanuel Forbes into the NFC East against A.J. Brown, and in his first game against A.J. Brown, A.J. had, I don't know what his exact stat line was, but Forbes was targeted like 11 times. He gave up something in the ballpark of 9 receptions for like 150 yards or 100 and 2 touchdowns. And it was not good. Now, are we still live? Because it came up, are we still live? Did we pause? I just want to make sure we're still live. Yeah, we're still live. Okay, because the screen froze. So we're good. Okay, thank you. Triple bogey, appreciate it. BAMM man, appreciate it. John, appreciate it. But no, I can understand your concern with Travis Hunter's low weight, but I will say that Travis Hunter is a different level of player than Emmanuel Forbes, to where I wouldn't worry about that the way that I would, or the way that I did with Emmanuel Forbes. And I'll give you a prime example. Now, I don't think Travis tackles like this player. There's not many players that do, though. But Devin Witherspoon is not a heavy corner in Seattle. He's playing against Puka, who's not small. Debo, who is obviously not small. MHJ, he's lanky, but he's not like 6'4", 170 pounds. So I think you'd be good. I think you would be good in terms of that. So, and Travis Hunter is a very, very just great talent. All right, who's going to win the NFC West next year? I would personally go the 49ers at this point, just complete year of hell, and I think they'll be back. But that's the Debo thing, by the way, was just to show that he's held up, because obviously the games that Witherspoon has played so far in his career were with Debo there. But that was the point of just to show like that Witherspoon's held up. Appreciate it, Adam. Slap the like button for the analysis. Thank you. Appreciate it. Who was the best landing spot for Travis Hunter? I'm trying to Jacksonville makes a lot of sense. You could have him and Tyson Campbell, and then you could have Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen get after the quarterback. I'd like that. That would be awesome. But I would that would be my favorite, although I don't think he's going to get to 5. New England with Christian Gonzalez and Travis Hunter would also be awesome. New York would be, the thing is, you can talk yourself into anybody. Denzel and Travis Hunter. Hopefully L'Jarius Sneed bounces back in Travis Hunter. Giants just premier market, getting a good football player. You can talk yourself into anybody with Travis Hunter. Would Vegas draft Shedeur or him and Geno similar enough for him to teach Sanders? So my comp for Shedeur Sanders is Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's a fair comp. I don't think Shedeur Sanders, obviously when you're Deion Sanders' kid, and if you know anything about Deion Sanders, how he was athletically, I feel like there's going to be some takes this draft season that are going to separate people that have watched Shedeur Sanders versus maybe people that watch a highlight or two of Shedeur, because there's plays where Shedeur looks athletic, not like his dad that was like 4.2 speed. But I think there's going to be plays where people are going to try to comp Shedeur to just other players that are not, or that are way more athletic than he is. But I don't know if Shedeur would fall to pick 6. But I wouldn't hate if he developed for a year, and then you have to factor in that Tom Brady's the owner, and how much does he have input in the organization. There's all these rumors constantly, or I definitely botched that wording, but there's a lot of rumors constantly about how much of an input Tom Brady has on the organization, and his word means a lot to people making the decisions and everything. But I don't know if Shedeur's going to fall to pick 6, because the Giants are going to need a quarterback. The Browns are going to need a quarterback. The Jets are still going to need a quarterback. They could easily jump the Raiders at 6. And then even in the worst case, the Raiders could really sit there at pick 6 now that they have their guy for at least a year in Geno Smith, and draft Ashton Jeanty. And you could have a 2025 Raiders offense with Colton Miller, Jackson Powers-Johnson, DJ Glaze, who had a solid year as a day 2 pick last year. Shout out DJ Glaze. I was a little underwhelmed with the selection at the time, admittedly. There's a draft pick that I would say I missed on relative to how good he played, by the way. But those 3 up front, along with Geno, Ashton Jeanty, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, maybe they sign somebody else in free agency. That's not unreasonable. So we'll see. And you can maneuver money around it with the Geno contract now. But let's keep it going here. All right. Let's see what other questions we have here. This is from Patrick. Do you think Jacksonville could be a potential landing spot for Pitts? There's a good question. Ingram gone, Trevor liking tight ends, and new staff wanting to build a young, strong core. So, oh man, yeah, that went down wrong, by the way. But I'm a guy that has never given up on the Kyle Pitts hype. Like I'm not where I was a couple of years ago, but I just refuse to believe that Kyle Pitts that Kyle Pitts at 21 years old was the second player in 60 years to have a 1,000-yard season as a rookie tight end. Now, obviously, Brock Bowers, he did in his rookie year, but obviously Brock Bowers was not in the NFL in 2021. So it was Kyle Pitts and Mike Ditka. And I refuse to believe that Kyle Pitts is he's just a one-year wonder. Now, I know there's a lot of bad clips of Kyle Pitts, specifically the one interception that Michael Penix threw against the Giants late in the year that probably should have been a touchdown. But I just refuse to believe that this physical freak, because he is a physical freak. I mean, he was there. Like, I say this kind of jokingly, but also kind of serious. There's a reason people didn't push back when he was drafted above Jamar Chase. I mean, you can obviously see it now. Oh, the Falcons still Kyle Pitts above Jamar Chase. But at the time, it was like, great, the Falcons are getting everybody loves this word, a generational tight end prospect at pick 4, and he's going to be there for 8-9 years. And that was the consensus view on the pick. And to give you an idea, by the way, just of how dominant Kyle Pitts was, he was 6'6", 245, 98th percentile wingspan, which is insane. I mean, the wingspan, I think the wingspan is more important than the arm length, by the way. It's kind of how broad your shoulders are. But 93rd percentile hand size, 91st percentile 10-yard split, which is critical because of how fast you can get off the line, how fast you can get up the field. 98th percentile 40. I mean, he was 245 and ran a 4.44. 97th percentile broad jump, so you can see the explosiveness in his athleticism. And then he still threw up 22 reps on the bench, which was 67th percentile. So I refuse to believe that Kyle Pitts is just done at 24 years old. So all that to say, to go back to Patrick's question of potential landing spot for Jacksonville, Kyle Pitts. Yes, I can see it. Makes a lot of sense. But I'm just not giving up on Kyle Pitts. Somebody said Pitts last year, Joseph, who's a regular, appreciate you being here, Joseph. Last year of his contract, not great production. He won't be traded for much. Agree. But here's the thing is, I mean, guys are not stupid. They're going to do everything they can to produce in that last year to get the payday. So if there's ever going to be a year for Kyle Pitts, it would be this year. Wingspan is why Campbell won't play tackle. Great point. Great point, Amstel. Great point. All right. Let's see here. What do you think will happen with Myles Garrett? So there was a report today, and I was a little annoyed with this from the Browns aspect because the Browns just frustrate me because they had such a good 2020 season. They had everything going right. They had Baker, Myles, and Nick Chubb all at 25 years old. Won a playoff game. Everything going right. I mean, you can say that Baker, should have rested and shouldn't have pushed to come back in 2021. Ultimately, they trade him in 2021 offseason, entering 2022, and the rest is history. But there was a thing today that there was a report today that Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, won't sit down and talk with Myles, despite Myles being reasonable every step of the way. Hey, you guys stink. I don't like the long-term plan here, especially with a not a cap casualty because he hasn't been cut, but a player in Deshaun Watson that eats at every opportunity we have to seriously compete. And I want to be traded. That's a reasonable request for a player in his prime, a Hall of Famer in his prime. That's a very reasonable request. I want to win a Super Bowl. We're not going to do it here. Everybody knows it. Please trade me. Please go get what you can. I want out. It makes so much sense for him to go to Philly. What is up with the Grassi posse, by the way? What do we have? What is going on here? Here after Tom's video, what did Tom do? What did he do? He's awesome, by the way. What did the Grosster do here? A Raiders and Seahawks fan reaction. Okay, I got you. He just posted it. Gotcha. All right. Would you say it's worth it for the Eagles to pursue Garrett? He'll want $40 million. It will cost a bunch of picks. I would say so, yes, because when you ask the simple question of who is going to be more productive in 2025 as you pursue back-to-back Super Bowls, Myles Garrett, or even if you were to trade up to number 1 overall, which they're not, but even if they tried, Abdul Carter. 2025 specifically is going to be Myles Garrett. So yes, it is. Go after Myles Garrett. All right. Am I going to be doing a live stream for free agency on Monday? I've definitely thought about it for sure. I've definitely thought about it. The Garf, appreciate Super Chat. Raiders raising their floor from disaster to semi-respectable. Third is great return for the Seahawks if they get Darnold. Completely agree. I like the trade for both sides. I think this is a rare situation where I love the trade for both sides for what it is. Seahawks, I mean, they get an extra third, top 75 capital. The Raiders fleeced the Jets. They turned that trade into a free rental. Not rental because they have to, or free, but they have to pay the salary. But this is a really beneficial trade for both sides, and I'm eager to see what the Seahawks do. Eagles should trade for Garrett because they don't need the capital. Exactly. The problem for them is the cap. They'll figure that part out. I'm not really worried about that. They'll figure that part out. In terms of, I mean, the Eagles will. Now, we're not talking about other organizations that aren't run well. The Eagles are, at worst, I mean, no, I'll say they're easily a top 3 in terms of well-run organization from the top down. Just the communication from the owner to the GM to the staff in terms of how efficient they are in terms of, hey, we're going to do this to do that, long-term. Hey, we're going to trade with the Saints to get an extra first-round pick next year. By the way, that's going to turn into Jalen Carter. The Eagles are one of the best, they're easily a top 3 in terms of everything. So I'm not really worried about the money. They'll figure that part out. All right. Let's see here. The QB movement is being run by former Jets quarterbacks. That is pretty funny. Because I think Darnold is, Darnold, Rodgers, and Geno. That is pretty funny. The Finns should focus on the trenches. Completely agree. I mean, yes, 100% like smash. If there's a button, smash that button for the Finns to do that. All right. And Zach Wilson, good call, Brad. Even good call on Zach Wilson. I actually forgot about Zach Wilson being a free agent. I'll be eager to see where Zach Wilson goes because there's definitely going to be people that think, oh, because Darnold did this, Zach Wilson can too. So that'll be an interesting one. How does Fries to Miami sound? Will Fries to a lot of teams sounds good. I'll just leave it at that. So good, great to answer your question. Great. Appreciate the super chat as well, Garf. Hope we get a couple focus videos on teams remaking themselves post-free agency. I probably have good news for you. Jags and Chargers, especially with all the cuts that have both been made. Yeah, there's a period between like mid-March and the draft where, aside from mock drafts, you can talk about, we 100%. We'll get you. I got you. Give me your thoughts on Micah Williams. I would say, actually, I'll just pull up my notes here. Let me just pull them up. But let me just go here. Off the top of my head, Micah Williams is going to naturally be comped to Trayvon Walker, just because he's 6'5", 260. He's a good run defender with the pass rush that showed flashes like Trayvon, but not like number one pick. Now Trayvon went number one because, Trent Baalke and everything, and Trayvon's actually developed into a really good player. But Micah Williams, I like him for what he is. I think he is a player with a very high ceiling, very, very high ceiling. He will be 21 during his rookie year, so this is not a 23 going on 24-year-old prospect. I think the ceiling is, I don't want to say perennial, but a Pro Bowl level talent, Pro Bowl level ceiling. I'm not going to get into the beyond that, all pro and DPOYs and all that. But Micah Williams is a really good run defending edge with home run ceiling. Is how I would describe him in one sentence. I like Micah Williams a lot for what he is as a prospect. All right, first time catching your live. Appreciate it. Perfect video to listen to while driving through traffic. What city are we talking about? Because traffic in cities like Miami, that is tough traffic there. DC, the Beltway around DC, another tough one. Let's see here. Do you think JJ is ready for next year? Yes, I do think JJ is ready. JJ McCarthy is LA's. I'll get to that in a minute. But JJ McCarthy's work ethic is tremendous, and that's one thing that has been continuously noted since he stepped in the building is work ethic. And yeah, I think JJ will be ready. Needless to say, he's also this whole thing that he's always behind schedule. No, he's not. He just had I'm not a doctor, but it was the injection to reduce the swelling or that I'm paraphrasing here, so don't take me exact, but it was not a big deal the way the media wanted to make it to be. It was not, especially when you have like 6 months to get everything into place. So LA traffic, I've heard, is awful. I can't confirm. I've never been to LA, but I've heard it's the worst. All right. Do you think Luther Burden is more of a slot or outside receiver? Oh man, Luther's testing at the combine was pretty concerning. Now, I like Luther a lot, but he was, I'm going to pull up again just his exact numbers, but he was not, there's next-gen stats that are public, by the way, that discuss, or that show, rather, not discuss, but there's next-gen stats that show, like, player speed during drills at the combine and everything, and he was not good at the 2025 combine. I think he'd be more of a slot guy, personally, but that's just me. Let's see here. Hope his injury doesn't mess his career up before it starts. Agree, obviously. That would be tragic. Yeah, whether it's for a Vikings quarterback or Packers or Bears or Lions, no, I hope that he's healthy no matter what. So I'm with you. All right. Where did the Packers go at 23? The reason why I paused there was because DK Metcalf's not going to get traded for pick 23 specifically, but I don't know, maybe a swap. We'll see. But DK going to the Packers makes a lot of sense. That would not be pick 23 though. Specifically, that would not be pick 23. So the Packers are in an interesting situation. Edge makes a lot of sense in a deep edge class. Corner makes a lot of sense for the Packers as well. So receiver, edge, or corner would be where I like the Packers to go. But Tez Johnson had an interesting combine, ran really slow, weighed in very light, but showed good burst and agility. Tez at 154 pounds is not good. But he looked good during some of the drills that they had on the field, which is a positive sign. And Tez's speed was actually a lot better on the field testing and actual football drills than just a track meet. So that's a positive for Tez. All right. Which prospect will have the biggest drop? I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm not a big fan of, yeah, man, this 21-year-old kid that's worked his entire life stinks. Do not draft him. I'm not a fan of that, personally. I don't like when guys do that. But I'll say right now, relative to where they were preseason, because he had a minor hamstring injury pop up recently, was Will Johnson from Michigan. I don't know how far he'll drop, but the hamstring is not ideal 6 weeks before the draft, and hamstring injuries they're bad. We'll see. I hope Will Johnson gets it cleaned up, though. I hope however you would rehab a hamstring injury, I hope that gets fixed and he can run his 40, he can do everything and show the player that he was on tape in 2023, because that player is a top 5 talent in this class. But that is going to wrap up the stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Geno Smith is a Raider. I do think Sam Darnold going to Seattle makes a lot of sense. Aaron Rodgers going to the Giants makes a lot of sense. Cam Ward, we'll see. But those are my 3 predictions right now, or 2 predictions right now, is Sam to the Seahawks, Aaron to the Giants, and I can't wait to see how everything else falls into place. But that is going to wrap up the streams. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we have a video going live tomorrow at 10 a.m., so hopefully to see you guys then. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.